All right. Well, good morning, students. Thanks for joining us. Again, I apologize that you're not able to see me this morning. Something is going on. I made it through the whole month until the very last day that we have stuff, and it's just decided it didn't want to work. So thank you guys for joining us today for our resume workshop with Miss Beverly Mincer. If you were with us on Tuesday, she was here and talked about, she did her 3-in-1 presentation that she does with college students across the country, and we are excited to have her back today to kind of talk about the importance of resumes and the things that you add to them. And we've kind of talked about this through our HR panel that we had on Monday, our interviewing workshops if you've been part of those. And so this will kind of hopefully tie the bow on the final questions that you guys have and help it make sense and know how to kind of create an effective resume moving forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Beverly Mincer and just have her do our workshop today. And if you guys have questions, you can use the chat feature, or since there's you guys are all on one screen, you can just unmute and ask or wave your hand or something like that, and we'll make sure you get your questions answered. So this time I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks so much. It's good to be back and see a few familiar names there that I've seen before in faces. So yeah, today we're going to talk about resumes. But before I do that, I thought you might be curious about the elephant in the room here. I'm coming to you today from Rockport, Texas, the self-proclaimed fishing capital of Texas. And that's like an 8-foot-long striped blue marlin mounted on the wall of this rental house. So I thought that would be something a little different for a backdrop. So how many of y'all have your resumes? Either hold it up, or if your camera isn't on, kind of raise your hand. You've got, let's see. Okay, why don't everybody raise your hand if you've got your resume, so I'll know, or either do the little hand signal. A thumbs up, that's good. We got a few. Okay, a few more are coming. If you don't have your resume with you, I'm going to talk a little bit, but I would strongly recommend that if you have a chance, just pull it up. You can listen, print it out, and then bring it back, because we're going to talk generally about resumes, but then I'm going to go through just very tactical, kind of section by section by section, all the way down a resume. And taking notes on your resume would be like the perfect way to record this information, or whichever aspects of it you feel like are value added to you. So let me share my screen and we'll get this show on the road. Let's see. Oops. Okay. Wait just a second. Let me do that one more time. Stop sharing. Okay. Didn't get the right one coming up. There we go. This should work. Okay. Great. Back in business. Okay. So the source of the information that I'm going to share with you today is a combination of 2 talks that I've heard. One, remarkable resumes that one of my colleagues gave from ExxonMobil and to some college students. And the other is information from Purdue University and their Center for Career Opportunities and their career planning handbook. And one thing I really liked, having worked for ExxonMobil, hired engineers, and then going to Purdue and seeing how they coach college students for getting their permanent jobs, is the 2 were perfectly aligned. I mean, it wasn't like one side saying do this and the other side saying do the opposite. So they're very much in alignment. And so to me, that validated kind of both aspects of the resume recommendations. So a little introduction on me. I'm an LSU chemical engineer. I worked 33 years with ExxonMobil, 16 different jobs from entry-level engineer up to vice president. and have been retired now and working remotely during the pandemic, but we'll be going back to Purdue University in August as an industrial career counselor and basically help students get jobs. So when we talk about resumes today, I'm going to go through three main parts: the purpose, the components of a resume, and then I'll show you examples from real resumes. And feel free to ask questions anytime. I won't monitor the chat, but Corinne will. If you want to put something in there, just feel free to interrupt. So, what's the purpose of a resume? A lot of people think the purpose is to get a job, but really the purpose is to get an interview. So it's your first impression. That piece of paper is the first meeting between you and a potential employer. And then you want it to be, exciting, dynamic, have lots of great skills to convince an employer that you're worth an interview. Then after they meet you in person, they'll be deciding about the job. So a few key tips. One is you need to keep it concise, one page only. If you get your master's degree or PhD, or you've been working, for companies for 5 to 10 years, then maybe you go to 2 pages. But you need to show them that you can prioritize and you can communicate clearly and concisely. And the concise part, you do that by only putting your best qualifications on the resume. You don't try to squeeze in everything you've ever done. And you say everything only once and pick the best place to do it. If you only have 1 page, you don't want to say the same thing twice, because you could have said 2 different things about yourself in the same space. And you want to have a lot of variety. Like I said on Tuesday, you want to be the cell phone with a lot of apps that if they hire you, you can do a lot of different things for them. And you want to prove your transferable skills for future jobs, and you prove it with examples. So you need to make sure you don't have a lot of just generalities on there. You want to tell them about real case stories where you demonstrated your best skills. And I really don't like lists, because anybody can put lists together. I'm a hardworking, committed, enthusiastic individual who will, do my best every day. Well, of course, anybody can say that. So prove it. And again, back to examples. And also remember, this is about you, your goals, your skills, your actions, your potentials. Sometimes I see people put bullets on a resume, and really they're describing the mission of the organization they work for. They're not really talking about what they did. So remember that everything should be about you. So how do you make your resume remarkable? The key is get involved. You have to have diverse experiences that you can talk about. The majority of this talk is about, how you present your resume. But if you haven't been in organizations, if you haven't done volunteer work, if you haven't had jobs, it's going to be kind of hard to make 1 page look remarkable, if you haven't done much. So you've got to build the content and the experiences from the things that you enjoy doing. And I commend all of y'all for taking your summertime to join the EfTA internship here, because that really reflects your initiative and desire for continuous improvement. So when you try new experiences, it's going to be uncomfortable. And many, many times you're going to get out of your comfort zone. Leaving high school, going to college will be a big growth opportunity. And don't think of discomfort as something to be avoided, because when you're trying a new experience, it can be painful at times. But sometimes you learn the most from the things that don't go right as you reflect on it and observe and improve. So for example, if you don't like public speaking, Well, there's an organization called Toastmasters. And I would recommend that you look it up and join and start practicing public speaking, because you'd rather do that while you're still learning and growing, in your education, than when you get to work and your boss tells you one day, hey, I want you to make a presentation to 6 people on Friday. And then you're like, oh my, I don't really like public speaking. So even though it's uncomfortable, push yourself out of your shell and go for it. So in preparation for writing your resume, you need to think about, what are your best skills? What are your best stories, the examples, that are going to prove your skills? And then what skills are transferable to the type of job or opportunity that I'm using this resume to apply for? So this what's in your treasure chest example is, just shows things, Do you communicate well with people? Do you work well with data? Have you been involved in special leadership organizations? Have you volunteered your services? So those are the things to be thinking about. And you never want a recruiter to ask you a question about something on your resume that's kind of a ho-hum story, like, well, I didn't really do that much. I was a member of the organization, but I just went to meetings, didn't really, offer to lead anything or do anything. So pick the very best stories you have, because when they ask you about them, which is where they get their questions for the interview, is off the resume, you want to have really great examples to talk about. So there are different types of resumes. Chronological is the most common, where you really list your experiences more in date order from most recent to oldest. If you have different skills or different interests, sometimes functional helps. Like people who say want to work in research, sometimes have a section on their resume just about research, because they really want to make that stand out, as opposed to combining it with a lot of different things. And, combined resumes, you can do a combination of chronological and functional. And use of templates is a question I get a lot from students. And I would recommend that if you're in a creative major like marketing or communications, that you can demonstrate your creativity and prove a skill for the job you're applying for through how you format your resume. But say for engineers and other more technical majors, I would just keep it simple with a standard format, because the recruiters, well, in both cases, are most interested in content. And how many different fonts you can use is not really a skill that they're, looking for that's going to impress, say, an engineering recruiter. So they just want you to get to the point clearly and concisely and make it easy for them to find the information they need. So now we're going to start kind of walking through a resume from top to bottom. So here are the key components. And remember, you want interesting and diverse experiences. So make sure what you have on your resume isn't repetitive. You don't want to always be referring to the same experience every single time. So you'll have a heading, objective, education, training, relevant experience, and we'll talk about other headings that can be in that section 4. And if you'd like, other skills and interests at the end to kind of wrap it up and cover any loose ends that you might not have been able to fit into another section. So for those of y'all that have your resume now, I'd say kind of look at your headings and see what you have there. And be sure to proofread your resume. Formatting, spelling, grammar, those are all very important, because they talk about your attention to detail. So it's not like, oh, they're getting all fussy about a typo. But you need to put your best foot forward on this, and you've proofread it. But if you didn't catch your own typo, they're like, I wonder, if they're designing a new bridge, and they miss a number, will they catch it later? So look at your heading first, and basically it needs your contact information. You want your name to stand out, include a call name if it's different. But you want to keep this small and concise to save room for the more important information. So here are a couple examples. One, you can see it takes up 3 lines and the name is bigger, all caps. And another one that only takes up 2 lines by using both sides of the margin, with the name in the middle and the address and then phone number and email address. So look at your resume. If you have a whole lot of space for your heading, the recruiter starts thinking, oh, they must not have very much to say about what they've done. So they're trying to fill up the page with this really big heading. So make sure it stands out, but not too big. Second, you should have an objective heading. And this is very brief, just 1 line. It's not a personal statement. Some people do like 4 or 5 lines, almost like a paragraph, trying to list all their best qualities. And all you want to do here is tell them, what you're looking for: a full-time job, part-time, internship, co-op, like your major or key skills. This is where they're looking for, what is it that you want to do? What type of work or industry do you want to be in, if you have a strong preference? And what most students do first time, write their objective. It's all about them. So, summer internship to learn about, applying my skills in industry. But for bonus points, say what you're going to do for the company, not just what they're going to do for you. Because obviously this has to be a win-win. So a couple examples here. To obtain a financial internship position in the international business sector, so we know what they're looking for and roughly where. Full-time job to apply my aeronautical engineering skills in the field of propulsion. So they have a very targeted area there. Internship in chemical engineering to apply my analytical skills to develop new products. So now we know they're just looking for an internship, what their major is. They promoted their analytical skills and they like to be in product development. So a lot got packed into that 1 little line. And I see a lot of resumes where people have no objective on it. And particularly when you're at college and there's these huge career fairs and the recruiters are there and, they are talking to, tons of people. They might have 100 resumes by the time they finish interviewing for 2 days. And you want them to be able to quickly sort the interns from the full-time jobs and things like that and make their job easier. Then education and training section should come next. This will have your university, major, minor, your GPA, and then any special certifications, unique courses, study abroad that you've done. So here are a couple examples. The shorter one, Bachelor of Science in Hospitality and Tourism Management. Their graduation date is there. And then they have a minor and a concentration. And you can see the GPA listed too. Now the bigger box, you see, they have their BS degree at Purdue, but they also went to community college first. So they list that, and they've done 2 study abroads, one in Peru and one in Netherlands and Belgium. So that one has a lot bigger education section, just more to talk about. So you want it to be complete and you want it to be up there early. One comment I will make here they want to know your GPA. And obviously there's a range of GPAs. The higher GPAs are always on the resume. If I don't see a GPA, I'm thinking that probably means they're not too proud of their GPA. But the recruiter is still going to get your transcript and ultimately find out what your GPA is. Y'all are in a great spot. You can go to college and start strong and be proud of that GPA. So that your grade point average is really your indication of your academic excellence. So when you get to particularly like your senior year in college and you feel like it's really having a hard time deciding what to put on one page, remember if you have like a 3.75 here, they know you're academically strong. So you don't need to tell them you were on the dean's list. You don't need to tell them you got scholarships, because people with those GPAs, that usually happens. So you can use the space on the resume to talk about your leadership skills or your adaptability, because you've already made a strong statement about your academic excellence. So that idea of say each thing only once, keep that in mind as you go through your resume. And then relevant experience. I love that heading because you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. That's my favorite general heading. But you can also customize headings. I'll show you some examples here. You put your order of experience from the most recent to the oldest. And if you look at the subheading on each experience, there's 4 things you want to put there. Your job title, the company you work for, the location, and then the dates. And this formatting style with the dates over on the right kind of helps. It's almost like setting a line across the page so that you separate different sections of your resume. And then your bullet points are your examples of actions that prove skills you have. Like conducted research, investigated effects, demonstrated effective communications, displayed excellent workmanship. So we'll talk a little more about bullets here coming up. So here is a great formula for writing your bullets. And if you're looking at your resume now, if you have very short bullets, chances are you're not using a 3-part bullet formula, because that's just a real visual clue. So you want to start with your power verb. So these are the verbs that prove your skills. You look at these: performed, collected, designed. So what did you do? And then you want to put in your task, which is really your example. And knowing your cathedral story, I just want to give you a little story here, because it's the difference between being too, I would say, micro about describing what you've done versus knowing, you're a part of a bigger effort in a team going forward that's trying to accomplish something. And so here's the story. So let's say a person walked into a quarry and there are all these stone cutters there. So they go up to the first stone cutter and they say, "What's your job here?" And the stone cutter says, "Well, my job is to cut this stone perfectly square, 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. And, I've got to get it right or the boss won't be happy." And they go to another stone cutter in the quarry and they say, "What's your job here?" And this stone cutter says, "I'm on the team that's building the new cathedral in town." I hope you see the difference there. I've seen resumes where people are analyzing data on Excel spreadsheets, but why? What's your objective? And the real life aspect of it, or the greater goal, makes it much more interesting. So the third part of the bullet formula is to put in something interesting about the task and the skill. So you could talk about your purpose, your method, or result. If you can quantify results, that's even better. Business is always interested in results. So think about that. You know, when you put in method, that's another way to introduce actually another skill, like a special software that you've learned and you're able to use, or some analytical equipment in a laboratory. So you kind of look at your whole resume and think about what it is that you want to talk about and emphasize, you know, make sure all those things show up somewhere. Are there any questions about this bullet formula? Because this is super, super powerful. Raise your hand if you feel like your resume has strong bullets that follow this model. Maybe not exactly, but that you've got strong verbs, good real world examples, and something interesting. All right, Calvin. Hayden, maybe? Others? I'm trying to scroll through to see. It looks like we still have a lot of cameras on. All right, thank y'all for responding. Okay, now we're going to talk about the power verbs. There are a lot of different words available to use. And you can use, actually, I know Corinne is sending y'all out a copy of the Purdue CCO Career Center Handbook, and there's a 2-page list. I just excerpted a few here. But, you know, what are verbs on working with people? And if you've had jobs, you're a waiter, you're a waitress, you're working at Home Depot, you know, anything with people, there are a lot of things you've done. So you don't want to say, you know, like if you were working in a restaurant that you waited on tables, but did you communicate clearly? Did you resolve conflict? Those kind of things. So working with people, working with data, working with things, working with ideas are all, you know, things you could think about. And I want to emphasize that list on the right, the do not use words. And these are not inaccurate, they're not wrong, but they're vague. And you don't want to be vague because we don't really know what you did then. So if you assisted people on a project, well, what'd you do? Bring them coffee every morning? You know, we don't really know. So you just want to make sure that you have as much specificity as possible. And, you know, make sure words like learn to, helped, you know, the fact that you learned something is good, but they'd rather know what did you do with your learning than just that you learned or worked with someone, you know, or you now understand something. So try to take it to, you know, an impact or conclusion and be specific. So here's some bullet point examples that show before and afters. So before, a student said, maintain record for account receivable and payable accounts. Well, now, after managed over 1,000 account receivable and payable accounts while working directly with the CFO. I think that was more professional than a student, actually. So I gave work assignments to staff of entry-level account clerks. Well, supervised and trained are much more powerful words. They both have a lot of meaning in the workforce. Accounting staff performing posting to general ledger, accounts receivable, and payable accounts. So now we have 3 different accounting tools that obviously, you know, this individual is familiar with. The third one is from a student I know that I worked with. and managed inventory for food and frozen goods. This was at a restaurant. But as a chemical engineer, he wasn't going to be working with food and frozen goods. So he changed it to say managed inventory by providing expectations and oversight of timely delivery with suppliers. And he will be doing a lot of that in an engineering career. So here are a bunch of different section heading examples that you can consider. You know, relevant is pretty general. You can pretty much put anything underneath it you want. Work experience and professional experience, usually people think of, I got paid for that. Extracurricular activities are usually more on campus, but they could also include community activities, or you could have volunteer activities separate if you had a lot of off-campus activities. Some people call it leadership and involvement. A lot of times what happens in university, and I'm sure you see it in your own high school experiences, is the classwork is more focused on your major, more technical. But where you really build your leadership, teamwork skills are in your extracurricular activities. So that will tend to happen more outside of the classroom, because obviously, if you're just sitting listening to a talk like this right now, you're not demonstrating leadership. So reach out for those opportunities. Significant contributions, campus community activities, academic projects. So you can get pretty creative with these. But I would recommend, don't try to dice up your resume with a whole lot of headings. Try to group, because what happens, every heading takes up a line. And when you have a heading, it's not about you. So you want to have enough headings to organize your resume, but not to take space away from you saying what's best that you can say to impress a recruiter. Now, this is optional, but if you get to the end and you feel like there are other things that are interesting about me, you know, or things I know, but they just didn't fit, you can have a section called Other Skills and Interests. And it literally is other. You do not repeat anything else on the page. Say everything only once. Examples are usually specialty software skills, foreign languages, or international experience, and hobbies and interests. And you do want to have a bit of showing the total person that you are. Some people, particularly, I work with a lot of engineers, particularly engineers, think if it's not technical, I shouldn't put it on the resume. But, you know, if you worked at Chick-fil-A and you learned a ton there, that is still super important. And if you were in the orchestra or the band, or you played a sport, there's so much time that goes into practicing, and there's a lot of self-discipline. So those are showing things about you too. And when you're in an interview, a recruiter's trying to make a personal connection with you. So, you know, if you put down, you know, one of your hobbies is calligraphy, you may be interviewed by someone who has an interest in that, and that might be the very first thing they ask you about, because they see something that they can connect with you on. So the box there, the example is from a student that I worked with. He was fluent in Bahasa. He's from Indonesia. One of his hobbies was being a stock day trader. He also knew how to use the software MATLAB. He liked weightlifting, swimming, and cycling. So it doesn't take up too much space at the bottom, but, you know, just show the total person that you are before you finish your resume. So in summary, you know, the companies want well-rounded people with a wide range of skills. So use your best skills and experiences to prove your future capabilities in the job you want. And get involved to diversify your experiences and demonstrate growth in skills. I have a feeling that those of you I'm talking to now are very high achievers because you're doing this extra program during the summer. Well, when you get to college, you have to think you're starting over again. You know, you don't want to be graduating, and the best thing you ever did was in high school because they want you to continue to apply your skills, grow them, and have new experiences to demonstrate that growth. Focus on things. These are very important skills. Technical ability, your academic record, problem solving, creativity, verbal and written communications, your leadership skills, your interpersonal effectiveness with a wide range of different types of people and situations, high pressure situations, calm situations. Maybe you've even get involved in some emergency response. Teamwork, you know, not just you contributing your skills to the team, but because you're on that team, how do you make that entire team perform better? Adaptability. You're going to lay out many plans in life and surprises are going to come along and you're going to have to change your plans, change your schedule, just flip on a dime. Flexibility. How do you work when change arises? And then you need to think about what are the characteristics of your dream job? Because it's a win-win when you're applying for a job. You want them to want to hire you, but they also want you to really want to work with them so that you'll bring not just your hands, but your heart too. So think about different types of jobs you're interested in. Research them online by asking people. Job shadowing, observation. You know, obviously the mentor program you've had here has been helpful. And then experiment. You know, when with your internships, if you go into a co-op program, try different companies, try different industries. Don't say, oh, I want to go back and live at home every summer. You know, move to a new place, see how that feels. So really take advantage of those next years. So that's all I have. And open for questions now and feedback. I'm curious because I know y'all have heard a lot about resumes. Maybe you could tell me in the chat, what did you hear that was new that you hadn't heard before that's kind of got you thinking?
Calvin, did you have a question?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead, Calvin.
So you talked a lot how this would apply for like, say like getting a job, but what would be different about sending a resume for like a college application?
Your objective is
Okay.
what's different. Everything else, they're still looking for the same characteristics, you know, as far as your diversity of skills and things like that, what experiences you've had. And colleges, you know, a lot of times like seeing you, you know, involved in school, involved in the community, you know, those kind of things. And excellence at some level, not in everything you did, but, you know, we all have our passion, you know, maybe you're in the band and that's really what you love. And so, you know, make sure something really stands out. And the leadership skills are really important too. But then back to just list, you know, what it's for.
And in terms of length, how long should it be generally? Because I've heard 1 page. Is that what it should be?
Yes,
Right, thank you.
1 page. That's what they're used to looking at. And what happens is you want 1 page that just every line is powerful. And usually when you go to 2 pages, you start filling it up with things that aren't quite as impressive. And so then it kind of waters down your resume. But they like just looking at 1 page where it's all really high impact. Let's see, I pulled up the chat here now so I can look at those. Did you have anything else, Calvin? Any other follow-up?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. For a college resume, you should include all achievements. There's a way that you choose only targeted achievements. You choose your very best achievements that have your best stories. So there's different ways to prioritize that. Like, let's say you were in the robotics club and you did robotics every year. You don't have to tell them every single robotics achievement that you made during that time. Pick the very best one to make a point about robotics. So, you know, and some things are just activity, but you think, did I really excel or did I have a special contribution or a special result? Those are the ones you want to talk about. And definitely, I probably see this more in college. You know, when people have jobs like at Taco Bell or something like that, they're like, oh, you know, it's a job. But, you know, if you're working 20 hours a week while you're going to school, that in itself is impressive. You know, and it shows you're willing to work hard too and be committed, you know, to delivering, you know, the job and customer service, etc. So did I cover that? Sackett, if I'm pronouncing your name right? Did that answer your question good? Yes, all right. Nathaniel, create a resume on Indeed. So would that be a template resume? Yes, that would be a template resume, which isn't a problem, but look at the template and see how you like it. Can you tell me, Nathaniel, how did that template compare to what I talked through as a format? Was it similar? You can unmute yourself.
It's somewhat similar, but there's like a few things that are different, like here and there, like the bullet point, like you said, the list, like the power verb, the task and all that, but they're like the bullet points just list like your strengths and weaknesses, or like what are things about you.
Oh, okay. So more descriptive than examples.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I would definitely go with the examples on that part. Yeah, and some template resumes have like key courses. And if you just list the same courses everybody else takes, that's not going to distinguish you from your competition. You know, so usually it's better to use that line for something else. So anything that's just a list, because you can't really put the life into what you did if you're just listing things. So generally a list is less impressive than an action bullet.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, Hayden, the more detailed bullets is something I've never heard of before. Plus I used assisted to start the explanation of my work experience. Thanks for sharing that. Well, I'm glad that the bullets, you know, that 3-part bullet formula is something new because it really, you know, livens up your resume. And assisted, helped, worked with, I see that a lot, even on college resumes. So you found out way early. Scratch that word. Thank y'all for sharing there. Any questions or anything else y'all like to share? And you can ask specifically if there's something relative to your resume. Let me ask y'all, have y'all heard of a CV? I don't even know if I can pronounce it. Yeah, it's very popular internationally. Vishal nodded his head. CV, curriculum vitae. Is that how you pronounce it? Vishal, do you know? I think I've read it more than I've heard it said. That is something that's very popular in academia. So if any of y'all want to have a career at a university as a professor or a researcher, there are some things that are different about a CV. You know, one of the important things in an academic career is publications, for example. And they would expect you to have publications, published articles in peer-reviewed journals and things like that. So there's more room for things like that that are academically oriented. And generally a CV will be, you know, 2 pages versus a resume 1 page, because they tend to want more detail. Anything else?
All right.
All right, Corinne, I think we're wrapping up.
Okay, well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I did upload the Purdue University College Handbook into the SIP landing page, so you guys can access it there for she grabbed some of the screenshots from it, but you guys can have access to the full one through the SIP landing page, as well as I'll send the recording out to this tomorrow, along with a 3-in-1 that Ms. Minter did on Tuesday. So if you guys don't have any other questions, can you help me thank Ms. Minter for joining us this morning and helping you guys kind of work through resumes and hopefully tie all that together from the things that we talked about earlier in the week and then throughout the program. So thank you so much for joining us this morning and coming back.
All right, great to see y'all.
Thank you.
Well,
In your senior year in college, and if I can help any of y'all one-on-one with resumes or anything, I'd be glad to. Corinne has my contact information, and you could just email me and we could talk together.
well, thank you so much. Students, thank you for joining us. Again, I apologize that my camera was not working. We have our last interview workshop number 4. So if you did not attend 1, 2, or 3, here's your last chance to do that. The recording for that will not be sent out, so you'll need to attend in person at 3 o'clock today. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day following as we finish up mentor calls this week and next week. Please let us know if you have any questions come up, and we look forward to wrapping up the program strong next week. So hope you guys have a great Friday and weekend.
All right, best wishes. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Have a good day.